For years, people have speculated about Tiffany and Melania's relationship. Were they close? Did Melania treat her like family? Or was there some behind-the-scenes tension that no one wanted to talk about? Well, guess what? At 31 years old, Tiffany has finally broken her silence. And the truth is even wilder than you think. And let's be real, when it comes to the Trump family, nothing is ever as it seems. And let me tell you, what Tiffany just revealed is not what anyone expected. So grab your popcorn, because this one is interesting. Let's get into it. Tiffany Trump's early life away from the Trump spotlight. Tiffany Trump's life started off on a note that was a little different from the rest of her famous siblings. She was born on October 13th, 1993, at St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach, Florida. 2 whole months before her parents, Donald Trump and Marla Maples, even got married. That alone set the stage for what would be a pretty unique childhood, at least by Trump family standards. While her half-siblings, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, grew up in the fast-paced, ultra-privileged world of New York City, surrounded by gold-plated everything and raised to be part of their father's empire, Tiffany's upbringing was, well, completely different. It was quieter, simpler, and far removed from the skyscrapers and boardrooms that shaped the rest of the Trump kids. After Donald and Marla divorced in 1999, Marla made a decision that would change Tiffany's life. She packed up and moved to California. Why? Because she didn't want her daughter growing up in the chaotic, high-pressure Trump world. She wanted Tiffany to have a normal childhood, or at least as normal as possible when your last name is Trump. For years, the world has speculated about the real relationship between Tiffany Trump and her stepmother, Melania Trump. Were they close? Did they even like each other? Or was there some secret tension behind those perfectly staged family photos? Well, at 31, Tiffany Trump is finally breaking her silence. But before you jump to conclusions, you need to hear every last word of what Tiffany just shared, because the truth is even more surprising than the gossip. So sit tight, don't blink, and watch till the end, because this is not what anyone expected. Instead of growing up in Manhattan's Trump Tower with security details and the media lurking around every corner, Tiffany's childhood in Calabasas, California, was all about backyard trampolines, home-cooked organic meals, and watching Gilmore Girls in bed with her mom. Sounds like a totally different universe from the high-powered, business-focused environment her siblings were in, right? Tiffany went to the elite Viewpoint School, where the annual tuition was over $30,000. So, not exactly the most normal childhood, but still far from the ultra-luxurious life of her New York siblings. Marla remained completely dedicated to being a hands-on, single mom. She even stayed single herself, telling people she didn't want anything to take away from her bond with Tiffany. And honestly, that mother-daughter connection was everything. Tiffany's friends have talked about how close they were, almost, like best friends, rather than just mother and daughter. While the rest of the Trump kids were learning the ins and outs of their father's business, Tiffany was having heart-to-hearts with her mom in their California home. But here's the thing. Being so far away from her dad meant she didn't see him as much as her siblings did. Sure, he was a financial provider, making sure she had a great education and all the necessities, but when it came to time and attention, that was mostly Marla's job. Tiffany did spend her spring breaks at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's lavish Florida resort, and there were occasional visits where he would fly out to California to see her at school events. But it was definitely not the same kind of constant presence that he had with his kids on the East Coast. Marla herself put it pretty bluntly, saying, "Her daddy is a good provider with education and such, but as far as time, it was just me." That says a lot, doesn't it? And then there was Melania. Since Tiffany was still a kid when Melania came into the picture, Marla made sure to encourage a positive relationship between them. She would bring Tiffany to New York a couple of times a year, letting her have dinner with her dad and Melania, making sure that those connections were built naturally. But let's be honest, Tiffany still wasn't growing up in the thick of the Trump family. She wasn't at the same events, the same parties, or constantly around to absorb the Trump way of life. Tiffany herself has talked about how different her upbringing was compared to her siblings. In a 2013 interview with Oprah, she openly said, "Since I have grown up on the West Coast, I'm definitely different from all of them growing up on the East Coast." And that's probably an understatement. While her siblings were being groomed for life in business, making appearances at high-profile events, and working their way into leadership roles within their father's company, Tiffany was just living her life. No corporate pressure, no daily headlines, no expectation to take on the Trump legacy. Because of this, Tiffany has always been somewhat of an outsider in the Trump family. One family insider even admitted that she didn't really get to grow up in the Trump household and didn't have the same privileges as her half-siblings. And honestly, you can see it. While Ivanka was a constant presence in the Trump organization and later in the White House, Tiffany was just doing her own thing, like going to school, hanging out with friends, and staying out of the spotlight. But here's the interesting part. Despite the distance, despite the different upbringing, Tiffany has always spoken positively about her dad. She has described him as the funniest, most loving father, and even though they didn't see each other as often, she never felt like their relationship was strained. "We see each other as much as possible, and of course we speak on the phone. I think whatever the distance, I don't think that dictates any relationship strains," she once said. And that's an interesting take, right? Because from the outside looking in, it would be easy to assume that the distance created a rift. But Tiffany doesn't seem to feel that way at all, and although Tiffany Trump's childhood was a world, apart from her siblings, she did have a quiet, loving and grounded upbringing with her mother, away from the chaos of the Trump brand. And while that might have made her the different Trump, it also gave her a sense of independence that the others may never fully understand. When Melania Trump became a stepmother, Donald Trump and Melania Naus's story started like a story, where fate just happens to throw two people together. It was September 1998 at the Kit Kat Club, a hotspot in Manhattan. Melania had only been in the US for 2 years, having moved from Slovenia to chase her modeling dreams, and here she was at a glitzy event when she caught the attention of none other than Donald Trump. And, well, we all know Donald. Never want to be shy about what he wants. He asked for her number, but Melania, ever the composed and independent woman, didn't give it to him right away. Instead, she asked for his number, flipping the script entirely. That little power move. That was just a glimpse of the quiet confidence that would define her role in his life for years to come. Fast forward a bit, and Melania found herself in a whole new world. Not just as Donald's girlfriend, but as someone stepping into a family that was already well established. His children weren't little kids running around. They were grown, independent, and had their own lives. In a way, this made things easier because there were no messy custody battles or co-parenting headaches. But it also meant she had to walk through a space where she wasn't exactly expected to mother anyone, but still needed to fit in. And let's be honest, dealing with a powerful, opinionated businessman like Donald is one thing, but stepping into a dynamic where his children had long-standing routines, relationships, and expectations, that's a whole different challenge. One relationship that particularly stood out was the one between Melania and Tiffany Trump. Unlike Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric, who were already adults, Tiffany was just a little girl, only 6 years old, when Melania and Donald started dating, and she wasn't around much because she lived in California with her mother, Marla Maples. That alone could have created a huge emotional distance between them, but Melania didn't want Tiffany to feel like she was the other child, the one who wasn't part of the tight-knit Trump family in New York. A heartwarming example of their Early Bond is captured in a photo from 2000. It shows Melania smiling warmly, holding 7-year-old Tiffany close at a tennis match while Donald watched the game. It's such a simple moment, but it speaks volumes. Melania wasn't just Donald's girlfriend tagging along. She was making an effort to connect, to show warmth, to be present. And that's something Tiffany probably needed. Having a famous and busy father who wasn't always around, plus living on the other side of the country, could have made her feel like an outsider in her own family. But Melania wanted her to feel included, to know that she had a place, no matter how complicated things were between her parents. In her memoir, Melania talks about her philosophy when it comes to being a stepmother, and honestly, it's a refreshing take. She never saw herself as someone stepping in to replace their mothers. Instead, she saw her role as a supportive figure and as someone the kids could count on without feeling pressured to accept her in any specific way. And let's be real, that's probably the best approach. No one wants to feel like they have to like or accept a step-parent just because they married into the family. Relationships like these take time, patience, and mutual respect. And Melania seemed to understand that from the get-go. One of her core beliefs is summed up in a phrase she lives by. Don't control, communicate. And you can see how that applies not just to her relationship with Donald's kids, but to her entire way of handling life in the spotlight. She isn't someone who tries to dominate conversations or make things all about her. Instead, she listens, she observes, and she speaks when it's necessary. That approach seems to have served her well, especially in a family like the Trumps, where everyone has strong opinions and isn't afraid to express them. Tiffany Trump has always been the Trump family's most mysterious member. She grew up away from the political circus, and when it came to her relationship with Melania, there were always more questions than answers. Well, now we finally have answers. Tiffany just broke her silence on her relationship with Melania Trump, and what she confirmed is turning heads. Some will say they saw this coming, while others will be completely shocked. But trust me, you need to watch till the end, because the truth is even messier than anyone thought. Public appearances versus private reality. The Trump family has always been under the spotlight, and to the public eye, they present a picture-perfect, unified front. But when you take a closer look, especially at Tiffany Trump and her relationship with Melania, things get a little more interesting. It's easy to assume that they're just polite to each other for the cameras. But when you really pay attention, there are small moments that suggest something deeper, something a little more real. And let's be honest, when it comes to a family like the Trumps, where power, politics, and a whole lot of history are always in the mix, relationships can get complicated. But somehow, Tiffany and Melania's dynamic has quietly transformed over the years, and now it's becoming clearer that they've built something genuine. Fast forward to Tiffany's 2022 wedding at Mar-a-Lago, and this dynamic became even more obvious. Weddings in any family can either bring people closer or highlight hidden tensions, right? But in Tiffany's case, her wedding seemed to bring everyone together in a way that surprised people. Melania and Marla Maples, Tiffany's mother, were both involved in the bridal shower, celebrating alongside each other. And let's be honest, that's not exactly common for ex-wives and current wives, especially in a family where status and public image are so important. But the fact that they all came together for Tiffany speaks volumes. They even had a special Tiffany blue cake, which might sound like a small detail, but when you think about how every part of a Trump event is carefully planned, it's clear that this wasn't just some random coincidence. It was a visual representation of two different sides of the family coming together for Tiffany's big day. And it wasn't just about the women in the family. Tiffany has always had an interesting place among her half-siblings. People assume that because she grew up on the West Coast with her mom, she was kind of an outsider in the Trump family, but insiders say that's far from the truth. Apparently, the Trump kids all get along just fine, even if they aren't constantly posting about each other on social media. At the 2024 Republican National Convention, Tiffany stood alongside her siblings in a way that she hadn't done before. In past years, she had been more in the background, but this time she was fully present, marking a shift in her role within the family. Ivanka, on the other hand, has been taking a step back from the political scene, while Don Jr. and Eric have remained at the forefront. It's almost like Tiffany is naturally easing into a bigger presence in the family, and part of that could be because of her growing bond with Melania. Now let's talk about Melania for a second. She's one of the most mysterious figures in the Trump family because she doesn't speak publicly as much as the others, and when she does, it's usually very calculated. Donald Trump himself has acknowledged this, saying in a 2023 interview that Melania prefers to stay out of the spotlight because of how nasty and mean the media can be. But even though she's private, she's still a key player in the family. Dynamic, and that's why her relationship with Tiffany is so interesting. In a family where appearances mean everything, the fact that Melania and Tiffany have been seen together more frequently and in more comfortable, natural moments says a lot. With Tiffany now preparing for motherhood, her bond with Melania seems to be evolving even more. Maybe it's because Melania also knows what it's like to raise a child in the Trump world, and she sees Tiffany stepping into that stage of life now. Maybe it's because they've always had a quiet understanding of each other that didn't need to be publicly declared. Whatever the reason, it's clear that their relationship has grown into something real, something that goes beyond the carefully crafted public image of the Trump family. And in a family where personal and political lives are so tightly intertwined, finding that kind of authentic bond is rare. If you thought the Trump family had enough drama, just wait until you hear what Tiffany Trump has finally admitted about her stepmother, Melania Trump. For years, people speculated about the dynamic between them. Well, at 31, Tiffany has decided it's time to tell the world the truth. So grab your popcorn and stay put, because this one's got twists you won't see coming. The truth behind the long-standing rumors. You know how people just love to assume. The worst when it comes to famous families. Well, Tiffany Trump and Melania Trump have been the subject of speculation for years, with people convinced that their relationship is distant, awkward, or even cold. But now, fresh details are finally giving people a real glimpse into what's actually going on between them. And let's just say, it's not what many expected. For the longest time, people assumed that Tiffany was practically the forgotten Trump child. Unlike Ivanka, who was everywhere during Donald Trump's presidency, Tiffany kept a much lower profile. She wasn't making speeches, she wasn't showing up at every White House event, and honestly, she wasn't really seen much at all. And that got people talking. Was there some family drama? Was she being kept at arm's length? Was Melania the ever-glamorous and private First Lady, making sure Tiffany stayed in the background? The theories ran wild, especially when rumors surfaced that Tiffany had gone months without even talking to her father. That, paired with the fact that she was raised primarily by her mother, Marla Maples, only made people even more convinced that she was some kind of outsider within the Trump family. It didn't help that the media loved to paint Tiffany as the other daughter, the one who wasn't quite in Ivanka's inner circle, the one who wasn't deeply involved in the Trump empire, the one who just didn't quite fit into the picture-perfect billionaire family dynamic. Even Trump biographer Gwenda Blair pointed out that Tiffany seemed to stand apart from her siblings, almost like she existed in a different world from the rest of them. That fueled the idea that maybe she and Melania didn't have much of a relationship either. After all, if Tiffany wasn't tightly woven into the Trump family brand, why would Melania, who was famously private and guarded, bother to form a deep bond with her? But here's the thing, assumptions are just that. And in this case, they couldn't have been more wrong. because Tiffany and Melania actually share a much closer connection than most people realize. Despite what people assumed, Melania made sure that Tiffany was included in family events and felt connected to her half-siblings. And when Tiffany was planning her wedding to Michael Boulos, Melania played a surprisingly big role behind the scenes. That whole experience brought them even closer, showing that their relationship wasn't just some distant formal thing, it was real. So, why is Tiffany speaking out about all of this now? Well, a lot has changed for her recently. She's now 31, she's married, and she's getting ready to start her own family. And as anyone who has been through major life changes knows, that kind of thing makes you reflect on family relationships in a whole new way. She's seeing things from a different perspective now, understanding just how complex family dynamics can be, and realizing that despite what people say, her bond with Melania has always been genuine. It also helps that the Trump family is shifting in big ways. Ivanka has stepped away from politics and taken a step back from the spotlight, which means Tiffany's role within the family is naturally evolving. She's more visible now, more involved in family matters, and she's making it clear that she's not some estranged or forgotten daughter. That's why this was the perfect time to finally address the speculation and put the rumors to rest. We all hope it has now been put to rest. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.